Okay, welcome everyone. As we are co-sponsored by the Rezepkowitz family in honor of their parents, co-sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Chazan, Lefu Shalema for Shoshana Bas Panina, Simone Bas Rachel, co-sponsored by Binyamin Rivlin, Lila Nishmas Yitzchak Ben Avram Yehuda Alevi, co-sponsored by Shelley Zeitlin for the schus of his children, Eli, Ora, and Orit. By Barak Gowasa for my Refu Shalema, my Shmeir ben Estfala, Kos Tov to the Shir, and Refu Shalema for Dov Meir ben Chaya Gittel, by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas Gad, and Yosef ben Tzion ben Yaakov Zev. The Shir is sponsored tonight by Ruvain Palik, Lila Nishmas, his father, Nachum and Yaakov Yisrael. We learn the first Shalema for Chana Bas Sarah. We also learn Lila Nishmas Levi Yitzchak ben Chaim. We learn the first Shalema for Mordechai Yeshua ben Yocheved. We learn the first Shalema for Bela Bas Chaya Ani, Yocheved Bas Shena. We learn Lila Nishmas Binyamin Avram ben Yisrael, Eliezer HaKoyen, that the Neshama should have an Aliyah. We, Baruch Hashem, just in time. He's a man that, he has a radar, an inner radar. He knows when we're going to start. We're already starting with 27 Zoomers here. That's a good way to start the evening. We welcome in Ruvain Palik, Yaakov Vorman. We welcome in Saba. We welcome in Menachem Umansky, Irving Fishbaum, Aaron Swade. Aaron, it's really good to see you. Eddie Chazan, Marshall Castle, Dr. Guy, Yisrael Fisher, Mel Zachter, Baruch Ian, Rabbi Kranz, Yitzi Fuchs, Shimon Klein, Stephen Holtzman, Shalom Fogel, Reb Kaniel, Dov Salkowitz, Michal Akhtam, Aishaliman, Elia Shutman, Abe Arbach, Jay Siegel, Avram Rezepkowitz, Daniel Rosenberg, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, and we welcome here in the shul Berish Gesseman, Gedalia Engel, Chaim Kramer, Michal Avram Chavin, Reb Shalem Yehuda, and Ruvain Shanet. David helped out on Kol HaLashon. We are starting ahead. Nice to start ahead at the two dots. 5 lines from the top of Mem Ches Amud Aleph. Moyach, it's an opportunity to get more brains. So we had a machloikis between Abaya and Rava whether hazmana milsahi, whether designation counts. Right? The question was, if you designate a piece of clothing as a shroud, does it make it prohibited or not? So, Meisvei, now we know that there is such a thing as Tumas Medris. That means if an item is used to lean upon, to sit upon, or lie upon, then that item is susceptible to become an Avatuma when a Zav leans on it or a Nida leans on it. So here you have a situation where a woman had a cap or a kerchief, and this kerchief she would lean on, she would lean back on, or lie upon. So it was an avatuma. And now, Meisvei kipa shu tamei medris, v'nasnasai l'sefer, and she gave it over to use for a sefer Torah, to cover a sefer Torah. Tar min medris, it loses its status of an avatuma, because now that it's used for the sefer Torah, it's not something that is reclined upon or laid down upon. But since it, so to speak, touched itself, it has a din of something that touched an avatuma, and therefore it still remains a rishon batuma. Aval tamei maga medris. It is tamei, something that comes in contact with medris. So here we see the mere fact that it was given for a Sefer Torah, that means it was designated, already takes away its status of being something that you lie upon. Says the Gemara, Eima nasnasai v'karchasai. It was given over, and you actually wrapped the Sefer Torah with it. So the Gemara says, well, if you wrapped it, so then that should be enough. It should say, and you wrapped the Sefer Torah. Why does it have to say it was designated and it was wrapped? Lamali nasnasai v'karchasai. Why do you need both, that it was designated for and you wrapped? Says the Gemara, this is like Rav Chisda, Kedar Rav Chisda. Dam Rav Chisda, Hai Sudra de Azmane Lemeitzer Beit Tefillin. A turban which you designated to wrap your tefillin in. Vitzar Beit Tefillin. And you actually did wrap the tefillin in them. Also, Lemeitzer Beit Pshita. You can't use it now to hold money. It's a Tashmisha Kedusha, and you can't use it to hold money. However, Azmane, if you only designated it for your tefillin, v'loy tzarbe, but you didn't actually put the tefillin in it, or tzarbe, you casually put the tefillin in it, v'loy azmane, you didn't designate it, shari l'meitze be'pshite, then you could put coins in it. So you see, you need to have two things. It has to be designated, and it also has to be used. Ula baya, who holds hazmana milsei, that designation alone is enough. Ulabaya de Amr Azmana Milsi, Azmane, if it's designated for tefillin, Afal Gavdoloi Tzarbe, it would be also to put money in it, even if you didn't actually keep your tefillin in it. Tzarbe, if you casually kept your tefillin in it, Azmane in, it has to be designated for that purpose. Eloi Azmane Loi, even according to Abaya. I did say by my son this week in Tom's River when I gave the drasha, and I did mention it here last week on Wednesday evening, the powerful words of the Chidush Arim. The Chidush Arim says that if you have tzitzis and they became worn out, or a talus that's worn out, you could wrap it in a garbage bag, and without the chicken bones, you could throw it away. But if you have a tefillin bag, that's Tashmisha Kedusha. And that needs Geniza, that's Shemus, that you can't throw away. So he says, imagine for just putting your tefillin in a bag, it becomes Tashmisha Kedusha. Says the Kedusha Rim, if you take the ideas of the tefillin and put it in your head and put it in your heart, then your body becomes Tashmisha Kedusha. Now, it's interesting. Everybody wants to know how does a Yid become holy? How does a Jew become holy? The Shin of a Rebbe said tongue in cheek, that you become holy by washing your hands, because it says V'skadishtem v'yesem kedoshim, v'skadishtem zemayim rishayim, v'yesem kedoshim zemayim achronim. So you can become holy by washing your hands. But of course, the simple explanation of kedoshim to you, the command to be holy, is that unlike a guy might do good deeds, but the interior nobody sees. So he could hate you, he could burn you in his mind. He could hang you on a gallows in his mind. There's nothing wrong with that. But a Jew, the Torah tells us we have to practice mind control. Lo yisisna esachicha bilvavecha. Lo yisisava, you're not allowed to covet. Lo yisito, you're not allowed to bear a grudge. So the fact that we have to be good through and through, that's holiness. But here the Chidush Arim is telling us something else. You take the ideas of the tefillin and you put it in your head. Your head and your heart is not less than a bag that holds the tefillin. The bag that holds the tefillin is Tashmisha Kedusha. You make your head and your heart Tashmisha Kedusha. You know, there's a famous story with the Vilna Gaon. Famous story. The Vilna Gaon had a minyan in his house. And there came into the minyan a crazy guy with a machete. And he started swinging it at people. And the guy, who was in an inner room, heard the noise, and he came out. He was wearing his talis and tefillin. And the guy took one look at the guy in his talis and tefillin and screamed and ran out of the room. So the guy said, it's a pasuk. V'rol kol ami ha'aretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha v'yorim mimeka. So he asked the guy, but they were all wearing tefillin. So the guy says, it doesn't say hamaniach tefillin al roshai. It says hamaniach tefillin b'roshai. You have to put the tefillin in your head. It's not enough to put it on your head. If you put it in your head, so then it makes an impact. Then you become holy. Says the Gemara Vaita, Tojma, still talking about Hazmana. Nefesh shebanu l'shem chai. A mausoleum, a house above a grave that was built while the person was still alive. Mutabana, you could use it. You could have a picnic there. If they added one row for the dead person, asamana. So the Gemara assumes that means even before the person is buried there. So you see Azmana Milsi says the Gemara that they buried the body there. So the Gemara says, what do you need that they should add a row? Even if they don't add a row, it's awesome. Kiloi haisif nami. Says, well, leitzricha afal gav the panya. Even if they subsequently removed the mace from that area, and they brought it to a different base akvaris, they brought it to Eretz Yisrael, if when the person died they added an extra row, it remains aser even afterwards. However, Amar Rafim Bar Papa, Amar Rav Chisda, Im Hayu Makira, if they could recognize which row they added, Choltzei, they could remove it, and then it becomes permitted. Tajma. Tajma. HaChoitzev kever la'aviv. If somebody carves out a grave for his father, but at the end he buried his father somewhere else. V'halach v'kivru b'kever acher. Well, an interesting thing, my father, Alav Hashalom, davened in the Svardish Shul. He was an officer. He was actually the treasurer of the Svardish Shul. So he had a plot in the Svardish Shul's Chevra in Montefiore. It was a very chashuv a plot. And when he was very sick, he told me that he doesn't want to be buried there. He told me that Montefiore is very far, and we're very busy. We won't visit him. That's what he told me. He says, your shver is buried in Woodbridge. My father was a very practical person. So your shver is buried in Woodbridge. It's right next to the Woodbridge Mall. The women like to go to the Woodbridge Mall. It's close. You'll come more often. My father is buried right next to my first shver. Right next to my first shver. So hachaitzev kever la'aviv, somebody digs a grave for his father, v'halach v'kivrei b'kever acher, and then he buries him in another grave. Harizelo yikaver by elamis. So the son can never use that grave. Says the Gemara, so you see Hazmana Milsi, it was only designated. It's a kasha on Rava. Says the Gemara, Hasam Mishum Kvaid Aviv. There it's different. There it's because of the honor of his father. And Hachanami Mistavra, the Ketani Reb Sefer, Reb Shimon Gamliel Aimer, Afa Choytzev Avonim La'aviv. If he quarried stones for his father's grave, V'halach v'kivrei b'makam acher, and he went and he buried him somewhere else, Harizelo yikaver ben meilamas. He can't use those stones. So Iyamir Bishleim Mishkin Kvaid Aviv, it's a special Mailu Yisera because of the honor of his father, Shaper. Eliyamir Mishim Azmana, because it was designated, nobody holds that if you spin wool to weave it for Tachrichin, that it's already also when you spin it. So to say that it's already also when you quarry the rock, Tavi Lariga, where you spin the wool to eventually weave it. Would even Abaya say that it's also? No, it must be a Maili Yiseva because of Kibberav. Tajma, Kever Chodosh, Mutabana. A new grave is Mutabana. Hittel by Nefel, you put in it already a miscarriage, Asabana. So that's a Klaraya to Rava that has Manolav Milsi. Hittel in, La Hittelai. Only if you put it in, if you didn't put it in, not. So Gemara says, well, maybe not. Maybe it's just coming to tell me that a Nefel, a stillborn, also makes it Aser. Who adin the Afagav the Loi Hittel. As to our question, designation itself maybe is enough. But Ulafuke with Reb Shimon Gamliel, the Amar Ein L'Nefelim Tfisas Kever, that a stillborn doesn't make something usher as a grave, Kamash Malan that it does. Now, this is actually a case that I once had. We had a family that couldn't afford to bury a relative. So we collected money. And then we had extra money. So Tajma, Moisra Mason Lamason. The surplus of what was collected for dead goes to other dead people. Oh, that's easy. Moisra HaMace, the surplus that was collected for one specific mace, the money should go liyashav, to his ears. So the Gemara says, so you see that we don't say Azman Milsi, because if it was Azman Milsi, how could we give it to the ears that they should use it to buy lunch? It was already designated for the dead. So Hachabamaya skin and Shigavu Mechayim, where they collected it while he was still alive. So that nobody holds that it's also if it was while he was still alive. Says the Gemara, but haloi taniachi. We didn't learn this way. Did not meiser amesim lemesim. The surplus of money that was collected for the dead is to be used for other dead people. Meiser ameis liyoshev. The surplus of what was created for a specific dead person goes to the ears. V'tani Allah keitzad. Gavel amesim stam. It was if it was collected for, in general, dead people. Zel meiser amesim lemesim. Kavel lemeizeh. There was a specific poor man, and you collected it for that poor man. Zel meiser ameis liyarshav. So you see that it's talking about he was already dead. So the Gemara says, "Ulatamech ema seifa." Reb Meir Aimer lo yiga behen ad sheyavi Eliyahu. You can't touch that money until Eliyahu comes. While Reb Nosson Aimer yasenu dimas al kivrei, use it for the matzeva. Oy ziluf lifnei mitaso, or to sprinkle wine in his honor in front of his grave. Ella says the Gemara, we're going to see that Abaya metaretz l'tamei. Abaya explains it according to his position that Hazmana Milsi, that designation counts. V'Rava metaretz l'tamei, and Rava explains it according to his position that Hazmana lav Milsi. Abaya metaretz l'tamei. Abaya explains it according to his position. The kuli alma Hazmana Milsi. Everybody holds that when you designated it already becomes osir. Everybody holds that way. Tanakama Savar, the chazi lay toughest. When you collect money, that which is needed, it it becomes designated for the mace. The loy chazilei, that which was never needed, loy tavas. Never, you only have in mind to designate that which was needed. And therefore that which isn't needed goes to the Yarshim. He's not sure if it should be used for the mace or if it belongs to the Yarshim, so therefore don't touch it until Eliyahu comes. I would imagine that if the Yarshim agree that it should be used for the mace, then that you could do. Rav Nosson pshita devadei tafas. It definitely is, even the surplus is designated for the mace, and therefore you should do something extra for the mace. Hilkach yasa dimas al kivrei, make a matzeva with it, or sprinkle wine in front of the grave in the mace's honor.
You don't do that. You don't sprinkle.
No. Now, you sprinkle bourbon into Marshall's mouth, but that's as far as it goes.
Stop teasing.
Okay, while we're schmoozing, we already have 36 Zoomers here this evening, as Dr. Block has just joined us. Welcome, Dr. Block. And 36 Zoomers, it's really nice. 2 times chai. It's really nice.
Rabbi, since we paused, did you get the pictures that I sent you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I even showed it to my wife. At first,
Rabbi, why do you have to sprinkle wine in front of the grave? What's the shot over there? What is that?
well, what happens is that the dust kicks up, and it's a dishonor to the mace. So when they sprinkle the wine, first of all, it gives a nice fragrance, and it keeps the dust down.
Why don't we do it now?
We don't. It's not our custom. As I interrupted myself already, I want to mention a thank you to the shir that today was my anniversary. Last year, the Olam bought us for Shalach Manis, a gift certificate to Salt Restaurant. So we ate there once as soon as the Olam gave it to us, but there was left over enough that I was able to take my wife out again tonight. So thank you very much. Shelley, thank you, who took care of it. I had to search where it was, but I found it, and it was a memorable evening. So thank you, everybody, for that.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you for that present. Everybody had a little share in our anniversary celebration.
Rabbi, the kittel that we wear for Pesach and Yom Kippur, is that designated already for Tafel?
No, it's not designated. Not designated. But we paskin like Rav anyway, that has manalav milsi. But anyway, because you shouldn't talk about it that much, because Barry was thinking about getting dressed up like in a shroud for Purim. So imagine that, Barry impersonating a corpse.
I'm going to dress up like Barry. It's The Walking Dead.
Rabbi, where are we holding?
We are by Virava Mitaretz L'Tamei, which is 8 lines from the bottom of Memches Amud Aleph. 8 lines from the bottom of Memches Amud Aleph. Virava Mitaretz L'Tamei. Remember, Rava holds Hazmana Lav Milsi. So, excuse me, I gave you the wrong place. We're holding by Rava Mitaretz L'Tamei, 5 lines from the bottom. Virava Mitaretz L'Tamei, L'Kuli Alma Hazmana Lav Milsi. Designation doesn't make it aser. Tanakama Savar, the Tanakama holds that Ki Bozule, even though he was disgraced by the collection, it's a very shameful thing that somebody should have the need for them to collect for his own grave, still achule meichel zeluse gabe yorshin. He looks away from his own shame, and he's happy that his children should get the surplus money. Rameir misafkele imachel iloy machel. Rameir is not sure. Hilkach lo yigaben. While Reb Nasim pshitale deloy machel. He said, listen, collect. It's not that my children should use it, to buy themselves, a playpen. If you're collecting money, then it should be for the dead. So therefore hilkach yasadimus al kivra, either use it for the matzeva, or ziluf lifnei mitasai, or to sprinkle wine in front of the coffin. Tajma. And the next case is a very tragic case. Parents lose a child, and they were so grief-stricken that they started throwing their clothing onto the dead body. So, if the father and mother were throwing clothing at the mace, mitzvah ala cherim latzilam. It's a mitzvah for others to save them and to take them away. So the chayra, this is a kasha on Rava, because if hazmana lav milsi, the other way around. It's a kasha on Abaya. If hazmana milsihi, if hazmana counts, then how could you save it? Once it's thrown on the mace, it should already be asr. So the Gemara says, Hasam mishum mirarayu. There we say that when they were out of their mind, because of their bitterness, because of their bitter heart, they were out of their mind. They were not in their right mind. So that's not considered a designation. So then the Gemara says, then what's there to save? That's only if it didn't touch the coffin. But why should be asur if they just weren't in their right mind? It's only a gezeira. Because if it touched the body itself, if we're going to say that it's mutter, we might confuse and say shrouds are also mutter. If the clothing touched the body in the way that it is buried, so there we say it's aser, because if we say it's mutter, the michlefei b'tachrichei hameis, it could get confused with the shrouds of the body itself. Tajma, kis she'asu laniach by tefillin, a pouch that was made to put in tefillin, asu laniach by mos. You're not allowed to put money in it. Haniach by tefillin, if it wasn't a pouch made to put in tefillin, you just happened to casually put in it tefillin, yaniach by mos. Says the Gemara, you're right. Rava will learn that you need both. Ema also, if it was made for tefillin, vaniach by tefillin, and tefillin was put in it, also vaniach by mais, and it's kid Rav Chisda. If you remember, Rav Chisda says that you need both. It should be designated and used for. By the way, it's very important for people to know that in the tefillin pouch, you don't put other things. People sometimes go away, and the wife says, you know what, could you take my pearls and stick it in your tefillin bag? Can't do that. It's Tashmisha Kedusha, you can't do that.
They can go in the outer bag.
Huh?
They can go in the outer bag.
Outer bag, yeah. Even the outer bag, when you say the outer bag, you're talking about the plastic. They could put it in the zipper outside, not in the inside.
What if your bag has zipper pockets inside as well? Like a lot of towels bags have a few zipper pockets inside as well.
the second bag.
The second bag,
The
correct.
second bag. On the outside, you could put it.
What about if you put your siddur in there?
What?
What if you put your siddur?
Siddur is different. That's a tzarech tefillah. That's different.
So you could, so you can.
That's different, yeah. That's not a bezayin to the tefillin.
About coins with stalker.
So, if you know you're never going to use those coins for anything else but tzedakah, you might be able to do it. But if sometimes you're going to use that for something else, you need a quarter for the meter, then you shouldn't do it.
What about people who put candy?
No, it shouldn't be in there. Tajma. Amar lu'uman. If you tell the builder, Asali tikshal sefer, make me a chest for the sefer Torah, or nar tikshal tefillin, or a pouch for the tefillin. Actually, nistamish ben kodesh, before you use them, mutter nistamish ben b'chor. Nishtamish ben kodesh, if you used it, also nishtamish ben b'chor. So this is clearly like Rava, that azman olav milsi, that until you use it, even though you made it for that purpose, until you use it, you're allowed to put in whatever you want. So the Gemara says, you're right, but Tanoihi, it's actually a machlokes Tanoim. The Tanya, Sipon Zav, if you took your tefillin and coated it with gold, or you should tola alei an orshel behemoth tmeya, or you decided that you wanted it to have zebra hide on it, psulis. We learned that out. It says, "L'man tia Torahs Hashem b'ficha." It has to be min hamuter leficha. It has to be from something that's mutter to your mouth. Or behema tahira. If it's or behema of tar, ksheris. Says the Tanakama, afal pi shaloi ibdon lishman. Even though the hide wasn't tanned, l'shem mitzvahs tefillin. Why? Because azman la milsi, azman is not important. Shimon Gamliel Laima af arbei matayra psulas ad sheyavnun lishman, until it's done lishman. Amalei Ravina l'Rava, we said that they start weaving a beged for the mace. Now remember, we said that it's only going to be aser if the person died already. Right? So the Gemara asks, who starts to weave tachrichen after the person died? Says that the body is laying there, and they start weaving tachrichen. Says Gemara, yeah, in a very, very poor place. That's what happens. Amalei in Kagain Shachvei Darpanya. Like the dead of Arpanya, they were very poor, and they only got the money together after the person died. Darish Mereima Hilchus Kavase Dabaya. Mereima taught that Allah is like a baya that has mana milsit. Rabbanan Imre Hilchus Kavase Darabba. Rabbanan say that Allah is like Rava. V'hilchus Kavase Darabba. That Hazmana la milsi, that designation doesn't make it us. Tan Rabbanan. Now we go on to a new sugya. Let's try to mute everybody. Okay. Tan Rabbanan. Haruge Malchus, if a person is married by Malchus, the din is if somebody rebels against the king could have him executed. The law is if he's executed by the king, his assets become the possession of the kings. Tan Rabbanan Haruge Malchus nichsein lemelch. The property of the person that's killed for rebelling against the king goes to the throne. Haruge Bezdin, those that were executed by the court, Nichsein Liyoshin, the property goes to the orphans, to the heirs. Rabbi Yudaimer, Af Haruge Malchus, even those that are killed by the throne, Nichsein Liyoshin, it goes to the heirs. Amrulei Rabbi Yehuda, so they said to Rabbi Yehuda, V'aloi kvar nemar, it says, Hine bekerem novois, we know that Achov had novois killed. And it says, Hine bekerem novois, asher yorad sham l'rishtai. It was the vineyard of Novus that the king went down to inherit. So you see that since he was killed for rebelling against the king, that was the claim, allegedly rebelling against the king, his vineyard went to the king. Amalahan, no, there it was because the king was a relative. The king was his nephew. Ben Achei Aviv Hoya. He was the son of his father's brother. It was a nephew. V'roy Eliyashai. So the Gemara says, but he wouldn't get it first. Navos had children. V'alai harba banim hayulai. Amalahen, so he said, Oisai v'ez banav harak.
Right?
What?
Son of father's brother is a cousin, I think, right?
Son of a father's brother. Son of a father's brother is his cousin. Correct. Amalahem, so he answered, Oisai v'ez banav harak. That when Achov had Novois killed, he killed him and his children. And therefore, as a cousin, he was the closest relative. Shenemar, imloi estimei Novos, if not for the blood of Novois, vestimei banav, Raisi, and the blood of his brothers, of his sons. Rabbanan, and Rabbanan who say that there were sons, it doesn't mean that he killed Novois and his sons. It means that when killing Novois, he killed also any future children that would be born to him, like the way it says by Cain, Demei achicha tzayakim alai min ha'adama. Rabbanan ahu banim ha'ru'uyin lotzeis mimenu. That's the children that Novois would have further had. So Bishleim l'mandi yamanich saying l'melech, that when one is executed for being married b'malchus, his property goes to the throne. Hainu d'chsiv beirach Novois Elokim umelech, that Novois cursed Hashem and the king, but it adds the king because therefore his property goes to the king. Elamani yamanich saying liyoshim, but according to the Maniyam, that the property goes to the heirs. Once he cursed Hashem, why does he add that he also cursed the king? Lamali Melech, Ulatamech, and according to you, where the property goes to the throne, and that's why it says he cursed the king, Elikim Lamali. Why does it also add that he cursed Hashem? Elafushe Riska. He wanted to add the wrath against Novois so that nobody should have a taina that he was executing Novois. Hachanami lafushe riska, to add the anger against Novois. So Bishlam l'man yaman nichsein l'melech, that a morid b'malchus, when one rebels against the king, his property goes to the throne. Hainu d'chsiv vayonas yoyav el oyel Hashem. Yoav fled to the tent of Hashem. V'yechazek b'kanas mizbeach. He grabbed hold to the corners of the altar. V'ksiv, and it's iksiv vayomer, and he said, "Loi, I'm not going to go. Ki poi amos. I want to die here." In other words, he wanted to be judged by the Sanhedrin instead of being killed by Shlomo for the deaths of Avner and Amasa, because this way, if he's killed by Sanhedrin, his property will go to his children, If he's killed by the king, then the property goes to the throne. Elaman Yom Nichsein Liyoshin, that the estate goes to the heirs. My nafkele mine. Why did he go run to the mizbeach? Says the Gemara of L'chaye Shah. He wanted to prolong his life, even a little bit. It says, Vayoshav Banyo es Hamelech. So Banyo, who was the head of the Sanhedrin, so Banyo returned to Shlomo the retort of Avner. Vayoshev Benoyo es Hamelech Dover Lemar. Banyo returned to the king the words of Yoav. Ko diber Yoav. So did Yoav speak. V'cho anoni, and so I answered him. Amalei, says the Gemara, Zil Amalei, go tell Shloima, Tarte loy tavid b'hai gabra. You can't do both. You see, David HaMelech had cursed Yoav, that all his descendants would be Mitzoraim, and they would die by the sword, and he'd cursed them. So he said, either execute me, and then the curse will boomerang back on David HaMelech's descendants, or leave me in the curse.
How did he have the right to dictate those terms?
What?
How did he have the right to dictate those terms to David?
No, because you see, it says, first of all, he's doing it to Shlomo and not to David. Yeah, the answer is that if he gets executed, execution and burial would be machaper. And then the curse would be a curse that's undeserved. And the din is if you give a curse that's undeserved, it boomerangs back on you. So therefore, zil emalei tarte loy tavid b'hai gabra. You can't do both. If you're going to kill me, then kibul l'tusei delot yavoch. Then you'll have to accept upon yourself the curse that your father cursed. V'iloi, if you don't kill me, shavke, leave me be, delei kibul l'tusei delot yavoch. Then I'll have the curse that your father cursed me. Vayomer le'hamelech. So the king said, look, kill him. Asei kasher diber, take the choice that he should be killed, ufgabai, and kill him, ukvartai, and bury him. And the Gemara Taka says that the curses boomerang back on David HaMelech's descendants. Says the Gemara, Amrav Yudam Rav, kol kloloi shekila David es Yoav, all the curses that David HaMelech gave Yoav, Niskaimai Bizarre Shel David, was fulfilled in the seed of David. Al Yikaris, the curse was, Al Yikaris Loyaleinu, Al Yikaris Mibeis Yoav, they shouldn't cease from the house of Yoav, Zav, people with gonorrhea, or Mitzaira, leprosy, or Malzik Papelach, people that needed to walk with a cane, V'noifel Becherev, those that will be felled by the sword, V'chasar Lechem, and those lacking bread. Zav, Rechavim. We'll see that Rechavim will be stricken by gonorrhea. D'chsiv v'amelech Rechavim, and the king Rechavim is ametz la'alois b'merkava. He strengthens himself to go on the chariot la'nus Yerushalayim, to flee back to Yerushalayim. And the word merkava is connected to ziva. The ksiv kol hamerkav asher yirkav alav, any riding chariots that you ride upon should be tamei zav. So therefore, Rechavim was stricken with ziva. Mitzayra me'Uziyo. Uziyo got tzaras. In his strong strength, Dov alibai, his heart was haughty, ad lahashkis. Vayimal ba'Hashem alikov, and he rebelled against Hashem. Vayovel el heichels Hashem lahaktir al mizbach hakatayris, and he came into the temple to be maktir the ketayris. Uksiv atzara zorchay b'mitzchay, and tsaras broke out on his forehead. So we see that Uziyahu, also a descendant of David, had tsaras. Mazik bepelach, needing to use a cane, may also rakla esik nasai chala es ragla, because also in his elderly years he was sick in his feet. Bam Rabbi Yehuda Marav she'achazu podagra, he had gout. Amalei mazut Rav Nachman, heichi dami, what does gout feel like? Amalei, so Rav Nachman said, kamachat bebasar achai, like needles in live flesh. How did Rav Nachman know? That he himself suffered from gout. That's one shot. He had it from a tradition from his Rebbe. These are the secrets of Hashem to those that fear Him. And it's the covenant to inform them of things. In other words, the great Talmidei Chachamim had information in ways that we don't know. Neufel Bacherev fell by the sword Yoshio. That we know from Yoshio, by Yoshio. The archers shot at King Yoshio. And there was so many punctures that his body was like a sieve.
That's not a sword.
Huh?
That's not a sword.
Well, it's sharp like a sword. So the same idea. An arrow is a blade. The chasar lechem, and lacking of bread, of basics, miyachanya. The chsiv, after Nebuchadnezzar died, then Nebuchadnezzar's son provided Yechanya with meals. V'aruchasai, and his meal, aruchas tamid nitnalai, a regular daily meal he gave him, implying that until then, Nebuchadnezzar didn't even give him food, so he was chasar lechem. Okay, we'll stop over here, Rabbi Isai, and now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yaimis.